Go out to your back step this morning before the dew has dried and look down at the ground you have cursed for years. That patch of green you spray with poison every June to keep it out of your grass. Before anyone told you it was a weed, before there was a drugstore with a wall of little boxes and bottles, that patch of dirt was a medicine chest. And it still is. You have only forgotten how to read it. I am going to tell you something that sounds like a boast, but it is only the plain truth. There is a plant growing in the cracks of nearly every driveway and sidewalk in this country, a low, flat weed most folks step on 50 times a day and never once look at, that will draw the poison out of a bee sting, lift a splinter up out of the flesh, quiet the itch of a bite, and close a small cut. And it costs you nothing at all, not a penny. My grandmother called it the bandage plant. The books call it plantain. And it is only the first of a good handful to walk you through today. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish. I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And long before there was a pharmacy in town, the women of my family kept their household well with what grew in the dooryard and along the fence line. My mother knew 30 plants by sight and what each one was good for. Her mother knew more. Today, I'm going to show you the handful that matter most, the common weeds that grow in almost every yard in this country, north and south, city and farm, and what each one does and how to use it, and just as important, where its honest limits are and where it can do harm if you are careless. Now, before I go a single step further, I owe you the most important honest word I will say in this whole video, and I will not skip it, because it matters more than any remedy. These plants are real medicine. That is the wonder of them, and it is also the warning. A thing strong enough to help you is a thing strong enough to hurt you if you use it wrong, or use the wrong plant, or use it on the wrong trouble. So hear me plainly. What I am giving you today is the old knowledge for the small, everyday troubles: a bee sting, a scrape, a cough, an upset stomach, an itch, a bruise. This is not for a broken bone, a deep wound, a raging fever, a chest that will not clear, a lump, a thing that will not heal. For those, you go to a doctor and you do it without shame, because the old people used every bit of help they could get and would have used a good doctor too if one had been near. And you never ever put a plant in your mouth unless you are dead certain what it is. Certain. Not fairly sure. Certain. There are a few plants in this world that will kill you that stand next to the good ones looking almost the same. So you learn each one from someone who knows, or from a good book with clear pictures, until you cannot be fooled. That is the price of this knowledge, and it is a fair price. Learn the plant before you trust the plant. With that said, let me show you the medicine cabinet growing under your feet. The first plant, and the one I would put in your hands before any other, is plantain. Not the banana they sell by that name in the store. This is a low green weed, and once you see it, you will see it everywhere for the rest of your life. There are two kinds, and both are good. One has broad oval leaves, wide as 2 fingers, low to the ground in a rosette, with thick ribs running the length of the leaf like the veins in the back of your hand. The other has long, narrow leaves, thin as a blade. Both send up a little seed stalk like a green rat's tail in summer. It grows in the hardest, poorest, most trodden ground there is. The edge of the driveway, the crack in the sidewalk, the path where the cattle walk. It likes to be stepped on. That is where you find it. Now here is what it does, and it is the reason my grandmother called it the bandage plant. Plantain is what the old herb folk call a drawing herb. It pulls things out. A bee sting, a wasp sting, a splinter, a thorn, the poison under a spider bite, the heat out of a nettle burn. The very simplest way to use it in the yard is what we call a spit poultice. And I will not dress up the name to make it sound finer than it is. You pick 2 or 3 clean leaves, you chew them a moment until they are bruised and wet, and you press that green mash right onto the sting or the bite or the splinter and hold it there, or tie it on with a strip of cloth. Within a few minutes, the sting eases. Leave it on and change it every little while. And by the next morning, a splinter that was buried deep will often have worked its way up to where you can lift it out with your fingernails. I have done this for my own children more times than I can count. A hornet gets one of them out by the barn, and before the crying is well started, we have plantain on it, and the swelling never comes to much. You can make something more lasting from it too, and this is worth doing before you ever need it. You gather a good basket of clean plantain leaves on a dry day. You let them wilt a few hours so the water leaves them, and you pack them into a clean jar and cover them over with a good oil, olive oil, or lard warmed to liquid. Let that sit in a warm spot out of the direct sun for a few weeks, then strain it through a cloth. Now you have plantain oil, and if you gently warm that oil and stir in a little beeswax until a drop firms up on a cold spoon, you have a green salve in a tin that keeps a year or more. That salve on a scrape, a scratch, a patch of rough, dry skin, a small burn, once it has cooled, does quiet, good work. It is the closest thing to that antibiotic ointment in the little tube, made from a weed you pulled up and threw away last week. The second plant is yarrow, and if plantain is the bandage, yarrow is the thing that stops the bleeding. You know yarrow by its leaf, which is feathery and soft and finely cut, almost like a fern, and by its flat white flower heads that stand up in summer on a stiff stalk, a whole cluster of tiny white blooms making one flat top. Crush a leaf and it has a sharp, clean, almost bitter smell. It grows along roadsides and old fields in the rougher edges of the lawn where the mower does not always reach. Yarrow's old name in the soldiering days was woundwort, and there is a story, true or not, that the old fighters carried it to pack into wounds on the battlefield. Whether the story is true, the plant surely is. If you take a fresh yarrow leaf, bruise it, and press it onto a cut that is bleeding, it helps the blood to clot and slows the flow. For a small cut, a nick from a knife or a bit of barbed wire, a wad of clean bruised yarrow held firm for a few minutes does real good. And dried yarrow, powdered fine and kept in a little jar, is a fine thing to have in the barn and the kitchen for that same purpose. Yarrow tea made from the flowers and leaves is an old remedy for the start of a cold and a fever, for it brings on a sweat that helps break the fever. It is bitter, so folks take it with a little honey. An honest word on yarrow, though, it is strong. Women who are carrying a child should leave it alone. And if you are one of those folks who reacts to ragweed and daisies, yarrow is a cousin to those and may trouble you the same way. Test a little on your skin before you trust it. The third plant is one you have declared war on your whole life, and I am here to tell you that you have been at war with one of the most useful plants in your yard, the dandelion. The one with the ragged-toothed leaf and the yellow flower that turns to a ball of white seed the children blow into the wind. You have sprayed it, dug it, cursed it, and paid good money to be rid of it, and the old people would have shaken their heads at the waste, because there is hardly a part of that plant that is not good for something. The leaf, picked young in the spring before it turns bitter, is food, a green for the table, richer in iron and good things than most of what you buy. But as a medicine, the dandelion is what the old Serb folk call a bitter, and the bitters are for the digestion and the liver. When you taste something truly bitter, it wakes up the whole workings of your stomach and your gut, gets the juices flowing, helps you digest a heavy meal. A few young dandelion leaves in your salad, or a tea made of the leaf, is an old help for a sluggish stomach and for that waterlogged, heavy feeling folks get, because the leaf is also a gentle water mover, what the doctors call a diuretic, so gentle and so proven that the old French name for the plant means, if you will pardon it, wet the bed. The root, dug in the fall, dried and roasted brown in a low oven, makes a drink much like coffee, dark and bitter and good for the liver, and folks who cannot take coffee drink it gladly. The honest limit, dandelion is a mild, slow, everyday tonic, not a cure for a sick liver, and if you are on water pills or heart medicine from a doctor, You tell that doctor before you go drinking a diuretic weed on top of them, for two things pulling the same direction can pull too hard. The fourth plant is chickweed, a little low, tender thing with small oval leaves and tiny white star flowers, so small you must look close to see the 5 split petals that look for all the world like 10. It grows in the cool, damp, shady parts of the yard, in the garden bed, under the shrubs, thick and soft in the spring and fall when the weather is cool. It has one little secret to know it by. There is a single line of fine hairs running up one side of the stem that switches to the other side at each pair of leaves. Once you have seen that, you will never mistake it. Chickweed is the cooling, itch-quieting plant. Where plantain draws and yarrow stops blood, chickweed cools and soothes. For an itch, a rash, a patch of angry red irritated skin, a bit of dry eczema, the eruption of a bug bite that will not quit, chickweed is the old comfort. You can lay the bruised fresh plant right on the itch, or better, make it into a salve the same way I told you with the plantain, the oil, and the beeswax. A chickweed salve is a gentle thing you can put on a child's rashy skin. And the young tender plant is good eating too, mild and green, a spring tonic in a salad. It is one of the safest of all these plants, which is why I'm glad to name it early. The fifth is the one that fights back, the stinging nettle. Now I know the moment I say it, half of you flinch because you have brushed against nettle on a summer walk and felt the fire of it, that sting that raises little white welts and burns for an hour. Those fine hairs on the leaf and stem are like tiny needles full of an irritating juice. But here's the old wonder of it. That same plant that stings you raw is one of the most nourishing and healing plants that grows. And the moment you cook it or dry it, the sting is gone entirely undone, and what is left is pure good. Nettle, dried and made into a tea, is one of the great spring tonics of the old world. It is thick with iron and minerals, and it was the drink given to folks who were worn down, pale, tired, run out of blood after a hard winter or a sickness or a birth. Cooked like spinach, young nettle tops are food, rich and green, and nettle tea is one of the best-known old helps for the misery of hay fever, the sneezing, streaming, itching eye season, for it seems to quiet that reaction in many folks who drink it through the season. It is good too for the aching joints, taken as a tea over weeks. To gather it, you wear gloves and long sleeves. You snip the young tops in spring before it flowers, for once it flowers, it grows gritty and is best left, and you dry it or cook it and the sting is undone. An honest word, once nettle has flowered and gone to seed in late summer, the old herb folks say leave the leaf be, for it can bother the kidneys then. Spring tops, gloves on, cooked or dried. Cooked. That is the way. The sixth plant is mullein, and this one you cannot miss once you know it, for in its second year it sends up a great tall stalk, taller than a man sometimes, like a spire, with small yellow flowers up its length. In its first year, it is a low rosette of big soft leaves, pale green and covered all over in fine hairs, so that the leaf feels like flannel, like the soft ear of a lamb. The children in the old country called it flannel leaf and cowboy toilet paper, and I will let you work out that second name yourself. It grows in the poorest waste ground, gravel banks, old lots, the edge of the field. Mullein is the lung plant, the plant for the chest and the cough. When you have that dry, tight, hacking cough that will not bring anything up, or the tail end of a cold that has settled in the chest, mullein leaf tea is the old comfort. It soothes the raw pipes and helps loosen and bring up what is stuck. Now, here is a careful bit that folks get wrong. When you make mullein tea, you must strain it through a fine cloth because those little hairs on the leaf will come off into the water and scratch and tickle the throat something awful if you drink them down. Strain it well and it is smooth and kind. The yellow flowers, if you gather enough of them and steep them in warm oil, make the old mullein ear oil, a drop of which warmed and put in an aching ear was the country cure for an earache in a child. Though I will say plainly, an ear that is truly infected and full is a thing to show a doctor, especially in a little one, for an ear can go bad fast. Mullein for the tickling cough and the raw chest, yes. Mullein oil for the simple earache of an evening. The old folks swore by it, but you use your good sense with a child's ear. The seventh plant grows right where you need it most, and this is one of the small kindnesses of the natural world that has always moved me. It is jewelweed, and it is the cure for poison ivy, and it very often grows in the very same damp, low places where poison ivy grows side by side, the trouble and the remedy together. Jewelweed is a tall, soft, watery-stemmed plant. The stem near see-through and full of juice, with pretty little orange or yellow flowers that hang like a jewel or a little horn, and in late summer, little seed pods that pop and spring open when you touch them, which is why some call it touch-me-not. It likes wet ditches, creek banks, the shady, damp edge of the woods. Now, if you have got into poison ivy, or you fear you have, you break the juicy stem of the jewelweed and you rub that cool, slippery juice all over the skin that touched the ivy as soon as you can, and it helps to wash away and settle the oil that causes the misery, and it cools the itch of a rash already started. The old folks would gather great armloads of it, boil it down into a strong orange tea, and freeze that tea in cubes to rub on poison ivy rashes all through the summer, or work it into a soap. If you are a person who suffers with poison ivy every year, learn to know jewelweed, learn where it grows near you, for it is the free remedy standing right beside the trouble. And here is a plain prevention worth more than any cure. If you know you have touched poison ivy, get to soap and cool water and wash the oil off hard within the hour, and jewelweed juice helps that washing along. The eighth plant is red clover, the common clover of the field, and the lawn with the round, rosy pink flower head, and the leaf of 3 with the pale crescent mark on each leaflet. The bees love it, and so should you. The flower heads, dried and made into a tea, are one of the old gentle blood-cleansing tonics taken in the spring to freshen a body after winter, and long used as a quiet help for the skin, for old stubborn dry skin trouble, taken as a tea over weeks. It is a mild, pleasant, safe tea for most folks. The one honest caution, red clover has something in it that acts a little like the body's own workings in a way that matters for women with certain troubles and for anyone on a blood-thinning medicine. So if that is you, ask before you make a daily habit of it. For most folks, a cup of red clover tea is a mild and pleasant spring tonic and nothing to fear. Now let me give you a few more quickly, for the yard is generous and I do not want to leave the best of it out. There is purslane, a low, fat, succulent weed with reddish stems and thick little paddle leaves that grows flat in the garden, and the sidewalk cracks in high summer, and it is not so much a medicine as a food, but a food so rich in the good oils, the kind they tell you to eat fish for, that it is a medicine by being food. Cooling, good in a salad, good cooked. There is self-heal, sometimes called heal-all, a low plant with a little purple flower spike, and the old name tells you plain how the old folks valued it, a gargle for a sore throat and a wash for small wounds. There is cleavers, that sticky trailing weed that clings to your trousers with its little hooks, made into a tea as a gentle spring cleanser and cooler for the body. And there is the humble mallow with its round leaves, whose leaves and roots make a slippery, soothing tea for a sore throat and a raw gut. Every one of these grows wild and free, and everyone was known to the old wives who kept their families well. Now let me stand back and tell you how to actually keep and use these plainly, because knowing the plan is only half of it. The other half is the simple ways of preparing it, and there are only 4 you truly need, and once you know them, you can use nearly any good herb you meet. The first and simplest is the poultice, the bruised fresh plant laid right on the trouble, on the skin, plantain on a sting, yarrow on a cut, chickweed on an itch. Nothing to it but to bruise the clean leaf and hold it on. The second is the tea, or as the old books call it, the infusion. You pour hot water just off the boil over a good handful of the dried or fresh leaf or flower. You cover it, for covering keeps the goodness from steaming away up out of the cup, and you let it sit 10 or 15 minutes, then strain and drink. That is for the leaves and flowers, the soft parts. For the hard parts, the roots and the bark, like the dandelion root, you do what they call a decoction. You simmer it gently in the water on the stove for a good 20 minutes to draw the strength out of the tough root. The third is the oil and the salve, which I already told you with the plantain. Fresh wilted herb packed in oil, left warm a few weeks, strained and thickened with a little beeswax. That gives you the salves for the skin that keep a year on the shelf. And the fourth, for those who want to go further, is the tincture, the herb steeped in strong plain spirits for some weeks, which pulls out and keeps the medicine for years in a little bottle, a few drops in water when you need it. That one is for later, once you know the plants well and trust your own hand. Now I owe you the honest cautions gathered up in one place, because I will not send you out the door without them. Know your plant beyond all doubt before you eat or drink it. Start with the ones that are hardest to mistake and safest: plantain, chickweed, dandelion, red clover, and learn them cold before you move on to any that has a dangerous look-alike. Gather away from the roadside where the cars have poisoned the ground, away from any place that gets sprayed with weed killer or lawn chemical, away from where the dog does his business. Wash what you gather. Start with a small amount of any new plant to see how your own body takes it, for any person can be the 1 in 100 who does not agree with a thing. If you are carrying a child or nursing one, or you're on medicine from a doctor, you check before you add any of these, for the strong ones can cross with the medicine and pull the wrong way, and use these for the small everyday troubles and keep the doctor for the large ones. The old people were not fools who scorned all help. They used what grew free for the small things and saved their money and their trips to town for the things that truly needed it. That is the whole wisdom, to know which is which. Now I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters, and it is bigger than any one weed. Think about what has happened in just 100 years. There was a time, and it is not so long ago, when nearly every woman in this country knew a dozen of these plants by heart, knew them the way you know the faces of your own family, and could walk out her door and doctor the small hurts of her household from the yard and the fence line and the wood's edge for nothing at all. That knowledge was handed down from mother to daughter, grandmother to granddaughter, for more generations than anyone could count, all the way back to the old countries they came from. And in the space of 2 or 3 generations, it has very nearly all been lost. Most folks today could not name 3 plants in their own yard and would swear on a stack that there was no medicine in any of them. Now, how did that happen? Not because the plants stopped working. They work as well today as they did for my grandmother and hers. It happened because there is no money in a weed. You cannot patent a dandelion. You cannot put a brand on plantain that grows free in every crack in the sidewalk from here to the ocean. There is no salesman for chickweed, no advertisement for yarrow, no company that gets rich telling you the cure for your poison ivy is growing for free in the ditch behind your house. The medicine that comes in the little box and the bottle can be owned and sold again. And so a great machine was built to make it and to advertise it and to teach every one of us from the time we were small that medicine is a thing you buy off a shelf made by men in white coats, and that the green things in the yard are nothing but weeds to be poisoned and mowed. And it worked. A whole people forgot in 2 generations what every people before them had known in their bones. I'm not going to stand here and tell you the drugstore is all wickedness, for that would be a lie. And there is a real life-saving medicine in that store that I would send my own family to get within the hour in a moment of true need. And thank the Lord it exists. But I will tell you this: for the small, endless, everyday troubles of a life, the stings and scrapes and coughs and itches and upset stomachs, You have been sold a habit of reaching for the store and the bottle when the older, cheaper, gentler answer was growing under your feet the whole time, and the forgetting was not an accident. There is no money in a man who can doctor his own family's small hurts from his own yard. Nobody can bill him, so nobody taught him, and the knowing quietly died on the shelf, not because it was wrong, but because it was free. My people never fully forgot because we never fully handed ourselves over to the store and the bill in the first place. The old women in our settlements still know these plants, still keep the salves and the dried teas in the pantry, still reach for the plantain before the tube of ointment. Not because we scorn the doctor, we use him when we must, but because we never lost the habit of doing for ourselves what we can do for ourselves. And a family that can quiet a child's bee sting with a leaf from the driveway and ease a winter cough with a tea from the summer's gathering is a family that is a little more free, a little less at the mercy of the shelf and the price marked on it than the family that has forgotten how. So here's what I want you to do this week, and it is a small thing and it costs you nothing. Go out into your own yard, and this time do not look at the ground as a lawn to be kept clean. Look at it as a pantry. Find one plant, just one from the ones I have named today. I would start with plantain, the broad, low leaf with the deep ribs in the driveway crack or the worn path, for it is the easiest to know and the most useful of them all. Get down and look at it close. Learn it so you cannot mistake it. Then the next time somebody in your house gets a sting or a splinter or a scrape, before you reach for anything, go pick a leaf, bruise it, and lay it on and watch what it does. Once you have seen a weed do with your own eyes what you thought only the store could do, something changes in you and you will never quite look at your yard the same way again. Then learn the next plant and the next, one at a time, the way you would learn anything worth keeping until the day comes that you can walk out your own back door and read the medicine growing there the way your great-grandmother could read it. Tell me in the comments below, which of these weeds is already growing in your yard? And did you know it before today? The plantain, the dandelion, the yarrow, the nettle, the mullein. And if your grandmother or your grandfather kept an old remedy, a plant they reached for, a salve they made in a tin, tell us what it was. For those old memories are the very knowledge I'm trying to keep alive on this channel. And there is a grandmother's cure sitting in the comments of these videos that some young family reading along will be glad of. I read every single one. Next time, since we have spoken of gathering the plants, I'm going to show you the old way my family dries and stores the year's herbs so they keep their strength clear through the winter. The bundles hung in the attic, the jars in the dark pantry, the right way and the wrong way to dry a leaf so it holds its medicine and does not just crumble to dead grass. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, look down at the ground you have been cursing, learn one weed, and remember the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.